The first step in any traditional publishing journey is the acquisition. But just how and why does an editor decide to acquire a given title? Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, the podcast for writers, readers, and cooks. This is Molly Stevens, and I am here with Kate Leahy. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Molly.
So, acquisition. You've written more than a few cookbook proposals. How does it happen?
Oh, I have always wanted to be on a fly on the wall at an acquisitions meeting,
right?
Just so I can hear what people are discussing, how they talk about proposals, what the dynamic is between the different editors, between the different departments within a publishing house, and how they can decide, yes, we want to move forward on this title. It would just be super fascinating. I mean, I guess you have to be an editor. I mean, they're not going to let us in.
No, they're not going to let us in. And I mean, I've talked to some editors. I know about it. And I mean, depending on the publishing house, maybe it's a weekly meeting or, there's a format where they sit down and talk or Zoom and talk. I don't know, but they're not going through the slush pile, but they're going through the acquisitions that they think are possibilities or ones they're interested in. And these are proposals that have come from agents, maybe unsolicited. I'm just like, and what makes them even like open the first page of a proposal and start looking at it as opposed to going, hard pass.
Right. And I guess in a way, it's not so different from if you go into a bookstore. How many times do you pick up a book and you flip through and you're like, that's nice, but it's not for me? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas, but it takes something extra to be like the great idea. It's also really subjective too. It probably depends on who's in the room, what they're looking to fill. I mean, I would think that if you're a publisher and you already have a lot of books in a certain subject, you might need something else, even if the subject's still popular. It's hard to say.
And the not for me thing is interesting too, because different publishing houses have different styles, have different interests, have different scopes. And this is where I think an agent can really help an author, but figuring out who to pitch to, who to try to sell to, because not every book is for every house. But I don't know, I'm fascinated by it. Like you said, fly on the wall.
Totally fascinating. We're getting as close to that fly on the wall situation with our interview today.
Yeah, today we're going to talk to Sarah Billingsley, and Sarah is the publishing director of food and lifestyle at Chronicle Books. She's also written a couple cookbooks herself, Whoopie Pies and Handheld Pies. Sarah lives in San Francisco, and we are going to talk to her about what happens in that room.
What happens in that room, also how she got her start in publishing. So all those, would-be editors out there, tune in also so you can hear how she broke in.
Well, Sarah, welcome to Everything Cookbooks.
Thank you for having me.
We have so much to talk about, but you've been at Chronicle for nearly 16 years?
Nearly 16 years, yes.
And in that time, you've worn quite a few hats, or had, let's say, quite a few titles.
Yes.
We'd love to start by sort of talking about your ascendance from editorial assistant to publishing director of food and lifestyle.
Yes. Well, 16 years is a lot of time to accomplish that journey. But I did start here as an editorial assistant. That was because I moved to San Francisco in 2005, and there weren't so many publishing opportunities in San Francisco when I moved from New York, where I got a graduate degree at NYU in food studies. Because I was bored in graduate school, also worked on the 75th anniversary Joy of Cooking at Scribner for 2 years. Because I was there in sort of a consulting capacity, I didn't have a formal title. So I came into Chronicle at the base level, and that was the job.
Cookbook publishing was part of your goal. That's what you wanted to do?
It was. I will say that, if you look at a long career, I was a writing major in college, but I graduated with a very keen interest in working in restaurants. A friend of mine, his stepfather, ran the only real fine dining restaurant at that time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, lived, and also went to college at the University of Pittsburgh. And he said, oh, hey, you should intern. You should intern with Tony. So I ended up working for more than a year, every single job at a very small fine dining restaurant in Pittsburgh. I was just hanging out in the kitchen with the guys at first, and then I was doing garde-manger in the upstairs kitchen, and then I was making desserts, and then at some point I was waiting tables in the front.
Wow.
And then I was entirely disabused of the notion that I wanted to work in the restaurant world.
I know that story.
Luckily, I then got a job at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which was the local newspaper. I started off as a clerk, and then in the 5 years I was there, grew into a restaurant critic job. And I did a really fun anonymous restaurant review job called Munch, and I did a not as fun byline restaurant reviewing job. Mm-hmm. I ate a lot of ziti.
It's Pittsburgh.
It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Right. And then you decided to go to grad school. What did you want to get out of grad school?
I wanted to leave Pittsburgh and I wanted to live in New York City, and food studies. I wanted that to open up my world to all of the different jobs in the food world that weren't cooking, that weren't hospitality, and that weren't writing about food necessarily. So I met a ton of people in food marketing. I met a ton of people in product development. There was the academic track. But then ultimately I came out on the other side working in publishing.
Oh, so it wasn't like you decided an undergrad, you're like, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I want to be a cookbook editor. You sort of loved food, you loved words, and it took a while to sort of figure out what the right role was for you.
That's right.
But then you come out to San Francisco, you're starting at the bottom, you're an assistant.
After working random jobs for 2 years in San Francisco, I worked at a place called the Center for Culinary Development, where I developed fruit-flavored coffees with a team in a test kitchen. I did market research on Fisherman's Wharf. I did green PR for a very short stint. And then I realized, okay, I don't need a byline, but I need a little more control. I'm an editor.
Well, you started an assistant editor, and now you're a publishing director. So it's sort of curious about how that editing role changes.
Right. Well, I gave the backstory because I came in with a lot of editing experience from Joy of Cooking and from my time at the Post-Gazette. So even though I was an editorial assistant, I was managing quite a lot of the list. So Tartine Bread is one of the books that I kind of hit the ground running, working on directly with Chad.
So managing, you mean actually editing, getting there and doing...
Editing, project managing. Bill LeBlanc had acquired those titles, so I was managing most of Bill LeBlanc's titles. There were some amazing authors, and I just sort of kept doing what I was doing and gradually was promoted many times over. Lorena Jones worked at Chronicle for a chunk of that time, and she was a wonderful mentor and also really helped me, I think, shape the way that I thought about acquisitions and editing. She really taught me a tremendous amount, which I try to carry forward now in the way that I mentor people on my own staff.
What point did you start acquiring?
Do you remember the first book?
The very first book I acquired was the Humphrey Slocum ice cream book.
Okay.
I was a fan of Humphrey Slocum and ice cream and making something that felt a little punk rocky. That book, it wasn't a commercial success, but it was a fun book to cut my teeth on. I also wrote a book with a colleague of mine, Amy Treadwell. We wrote a book called Whoopie Pies, which was actually a tremendously successful book that we wrote on Chronicle time.
Wow. So how did that work? Doing the editing is a specific skill set, and then doing the writing is a different skill set. I could see them being at odds with each other. I mean, so how did you actually find the time for you both to write a book while you're working as an editor?
I know, it was wild. It was a lot of going to work, going home, and making whoopie pies for hours every night. And sometimes we would take a day and we would test a bunch of recipes. And there were two of us, and we farmed them out. Our office was filled with whoopie pies for months and months and months. We would bring them all back into the office and people would vote. And then when the whoopie pies stopped, everyone was depressed.
Oh, sure. They're like, wait a second.
Well, you did hand pies after that, didn't you? Yeah.
I did a hand pies book. That one was a little simpler because, there's only so many doughs in that book. So, and then you just need to test them in different sizes and different iterations and fillings. And
did that change the way that you edited books after writing?
Absolutely.
How did that change the way you kind of work with authors?
Well, I think I really developed compassion for the testing process. And I also developed a real rigor about the testing process because I knew how many times it took to get it right. I knew that you can't write a book on a super tight schedule unless you have an army of people helping you write those books. You asked me about the difficulty of writing a cookbook, but when you edit recipes, you just sort of naturally take that format and start using it. It was the colorful, the voicey part of the book that was actually the more difficult part to think of and write. And when you read so many and you read so many head notes and you think, what do I have to say in a head note that is new? Yeah. Like, what has someone not said?
I'm curious with the whoopie pie book and hand pie as well, was that you saw a market for this book?
Exactly. We saw there was a New York Times article, is the whoopie pie the next cupcake or something like that? And Amy was from New Hampshire originally, and I was from Pennsylvania. And both Maine and Pennsylvania take credit for the whoopie pie. So we thought it would be fun to just develop, take that tension, that friction, and expand it into recipes for whoopie pies. So it was pretty fun, really. I mean, it was extra, but it was also really fun.
Well, it's also an interesting choice with both those books. You had a co-author.
Yes, that's true.
Understanding that being a full-time editor and being an author might be a little more, yeah.
Right.
Yes. And in fact, for handheld pies, I farmed out all of the writing, the sidebars, and the interviews and everything to my friend Rachel Wharton, who did a great job with that. I just did the recipes.
Recipes and the project management, which is a big part.
Well, actually, that book, Amy project managed. And whoopie pies, how did we do whoopie pies? I don't remember, actually. I mean, we had someone else really running it through. Okay. Because otherwise it's a little bit of a conflict of interest. If you have it proofread and you're studying all the comments you don't like, right. That's not okay.
Right.
But that's a really good point that going through that process, even though you had worked on a lot of books, this was even like further kind of made you feel like what it's like to be in the author's seat. And then working with authors, you're like, okay, this is how much time you're going to, especially with a first time author who might not know how much time, that goes into like getting one recipe right.
Right. Time, and you're never going to get to perfection.
No.
I mean, there were photos in both of those books that I didn't particularly care for. Whatever, stylistic choices, and I just had to give myself over to it.
But I love you say you learned compassion, but also rigor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much compassion for the authors that, oh, it's okay, take more time, or it's okay if you don't test. It's like, no, the compassion is there because of the rigor demanded by making a Chronicle book.
Absolutely. It's got to work because that's why I do what I do. I want people to cook from our books.
Very good point. You go through writing your own book. You've edited a lot of books. Throughout the years, what has changed in the way you approach editing?
I would say there are several major changes. Number one, which is the least interesting of all, is that the technology has changed. So I used to sit down at a giant table with all of these printouts, and I would have the author set, and I would have, the other author set, and I would have my set, and I would collate all the changes on paper, and I would scrawl and cross out and cut things out and paste them to a different page, and I loved that. And we now do it in Adobe, and it's really, I would say, my least favorite part of my job. I just loathe working in Adobe. Sorry, Adobe. But it's cumbersome and you've lost the flow. I still will read books out on paper because I think otherwise you miss details. So that's one, is the technology has changed. Two is that I do farm out a lot of the editing to colleagues that I'm teaching. I will do a run through of a manuscript. At one point, I would go through every single thing in the manuscript. I'm at a place I do not have time to go through every single line of every single manuscript on my list. So I will read the whole thing, of course, and make notes throughout, and I will edit a chunk of it. And I will look for structural changes, and I will look for the sort of like top level organizational structural, like, is this book working? If it's not, I'll jigsaw puzzle the recipe order. I will weigh in on the shot list. And I'm still there for the author management piece of it. But it's really hard to learn how to think about cookbooks unless you have someone teaching you what to look for. So when I pass it over to a younger editor for them to take over and start going through it, they can actually do that on top of my changes. And it's kind of the best way to learn.
So you'll share your notes or your first reactions and then say, now you get into the nitty gritty and make it work.
Yeah, sometimes, not always.
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm so curious about the structural, how you look at a cookbook structurally. What are certain things that seem to come up over and over again?
Well, first of all, you think about, there are so many cookbooks. right? And if you're going to publish a general desserts cookbook, is there a way that you can lead someone into that book differently? So you could have cookies, brownies, cakes, or maybe you have chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, like thinking about how to present what is presented. And this is usually a very early on conversation with the author. We get an early delivery, which is either a chapter or a chunk of the book, but it also is the contents and an outline of what's going to be in the book that's, 85% accurate. So I'm able to look at that, and I'm able to look at the recipe content, and I'm able to talk with the author about, is there a different way that we can present this that might make someone think differently about it? Should we arrange it by how long it takes? Should we arrange it by flavor? Should we arrange it by, chronology in some cases when you're doing a retrospective of somebody's cooking career, like in 6 California Kitchens? So that's the sort of structural stuff I look at. Whether some chapters are really, really long and other chapters are super, super short because there's not that much to put in them. Should that be a chapter? Maybe let's just absorb those recipes into a different chapter. We've published a cookbook with 0 chapters because it's kind of fun to just move through the book, or progress through the book that doesn't have these pauses.
A shorter book needs a different structure than, say, a very long book that needs more rigor in terms of, like, how am I going to organize this information?
Right. How am I going to find what I need, or how am I going to use this book? What am I going to find, and where's it going to lead me?
A reader focus there.
Yes.
It's interesting. We had Betsy Andrews on earlier this year to talk about Coastal,
which I made with Betsy.
Right. And
right.
Chef Scott Clark. And she mentioned that when they were shopping it, that Chronicle just felt like the right publisher for the book. And so I'm interested in, well, first of all, what appealed to you about Coastal, the proposal?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What stood out with that?
Dad's Luncheonette is a lovely restaurant that I've gone to with my family. My family goes down along the coast with some frequency. So already the subject appealed to me. As a San Francisco-based publisher, we love to make California-focused books. So second, it was a California book and a slice of the coast that I hadn't seen much publishing originate from. Scott, when we did a call, was so dynamic and funny. And I just thought, this man is a character. And if this book has any of his character in it, this book is it's going to feel fresh and it's going to feel exciting. And then Che, the photographer, we had a great call. I mean, Betsy, you talk to Betsy, you know that she is so lively and so smart. And the team, I was so impressed with the team and then the idea behind the book. And they seemed also really open. So I think when you think about what makes a Chronicle book, we do try to have a California book at least every year on our cookbook list. 2 is this, you can sort of see it. You can see what the book will become. You know that it'll be photo rich. You imagine that there's some sort of production value that you can bring to it, whether it's the puffy cover on tartine bread, whether it's a different paper stock that makes it feel sort of hippie and toothy. With Coastal, it was that like bright. There was such a brightness to everything. And we wanted that big PMS 5th color title in bright, what is that? Coral.
Neon coral, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love the cover and I love the spine of that book. It really stands out on the shelf. It really looks like something that will draw someone's eye at a shop.
And super voicey, too.
Yeah, super voicey.
Yeah. So those are all, I think, aspects of what speaks to us as a Chronicle book. The voice, the production, the team, the connection to place. And we do a wide variety of books. I mean, we do platform-driven books. We publish Nick Sharma. We publish Snoop Dogg,
Right.
I don't know, a platform bigger than that. Maybe
Right.
the Pope.
Yeah.
And then we have little tiny books by someone who's really new. And what they're meant to do is to go out into a world where somebody's looking at dish towels on a table of merchandise and they see a little book about chili crisp or they see a little book about butter. And I love those books because it gives us an opportunity to work with a ton of people, fresh voices that haven't maybe published in a while, but want to just do something that feels, maybe a little easier than a giant tome.
Mm-hmm.
And those feel very Chronicle for their merchandising potential.
And about how many cookbooks is Chronicle per year? How big is the catalog?
We have 7 books per season in lifestyle. well, between 6 and 7, depending. So that's 12 to 14 lifestyle books a year. And we have more. So 7 is our target, but we often go over on cookbooks because sometimes we just can't say no to something that feels like it needs to live on the list. So it's between 7 and 9 titles. So a total of 14 to 18 over the course of a year. And then we also do gift product. So it's mostly lifestyle, guided journals, decks, pick a stick, dice, things like that. And, they're around topics on exercise or mindfulness or parenting. But we've started publishing some food content in that space too. We have these meet cute note cards that are little funny, meaty characters meeting each other that somebody who loves meat or food humor might send a card to a friend. Or we do food decks. So sometimes we repurpose content and publish it in a deck format of recipes. So like you take a book of 100 recipes and you boil it down to the 32 recipes that fit on a card. We do folding cards now. So we have about 2 food formats per list too.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a ton. It's not a huge list.
I think I was at the, there's that new museum in the Napa Valley called the Mac Museum, and there's a new Julia Child exhibit. I think I picked up something in the gift shop that was a Chronicle Books. It looked like a stick of butter, but I think it was a pat of butter, but it was like it was like sticky notes. And I was like, that is very, very clever.
Yes.
Speaking of Napa, last year, Sarah, you were on a panel that some of our listeners might have been at called Cookbook Fest.
Yep.
It was a panel sort of about publishing, and you got really real about what it takes to break through. And one of the things I was really happy you said this was there was a lot of people in the audience who probably wanted to publish a cookbook one day. And you said, like, you get so many pitches a week that you have to look for ways to say no. And I wanted to know, just to dig a little bit deeper into that, because it's true. If you published every single proposal that came across your desk, I don't know, you would need a lot of you to go around. Those books wouldn't also find their audience. Like, one publisher cannot publish all the books.
No.
14 books is not a lot of books. That's a lot of competition. So what are these intangibles that you're looking for?
Well, sometimes if something comes in with just a great title and you're like, wow, this person came up with an amazing title. Oh. And clearly they have ideas and they can pretty much write and the recipes sound good. That definitely hooks us. I think that we also try not to repeat ourselves too much. So something that feels fresh and different, untrodden. That's why we loved your Lavash book. Oh. Something that feels like it's coming from a voice that needs to be heard, or someone that we could potentially, like, maybe there's this small first idea, but the next book, this sense of collaboration that we could get there. The next book might be the big book.
But you would maybe be interested in the first book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there has to be something good.
Of course. You wouldn't. Right. Yeah. You're not going to take one that's a dud.
Right. Either a platform or a voiciness or just a really interesting way of thinking about food. And, maybe it's a start small with a book that has 45 recipes and then your next book is bigger. What else? Something intangible. I mean, it is just kind of something you own when you work here at Chronicle. This sense of, I see that. Like, you can sort of see it in the world. You can imagine who is buying it or picking it up. You can imagine the retail environment that it lives in. You can imagine making the book with the person who submitted to you. Of course, there are many projects that we get from agents, and there are certain agents that I feel a particular kinship with. And I know that if this person is sending me this, well, this is the one that I should try to get.
Mm. Yeah. How much time do you have in your week to read proposals?
Wow. I know. Proposals are something I tend to read on Fridays when I have coffee. But I do look at things, sometimes that something's coming to you. And we have our editorial meeting on Thursday morning. And the ideal is that everything you get up until Thursday, you can discuss. I can discuss with my editorial colleagues who are also bringing everything they got in that Thursday acquisition. It's not even an acquisitions meeting. It's more of like an editorial review. So we bring notable passes. We bring, what do you think? Like, what can we make of this? Or, oh my gosh, we need to run this through really quickly. What's our strategy?
Notable passes being a book you've passed on.
Yeah, notable passes being, I'm going to say no to this, but I really like this author, or we're going to say no to this because we think somebody's going to pay $1 million for it, and that's not us.
Right.
But I love it. You know?
No, I totally understand that, because you're not just passing on it and it's gone forever. And I mean, then there's a conversation around it and it still lives on in its own little way, even if it doesn't become a Chronicle book that year.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would say about 20% of our list is comprised of proposals that came to us and there was something we liked. And it didn't turn out to be the book that came to us as a proposal. We went back to the author and the agent, or just the author, and said, hey, this isn't quite the book, but would you like to have a conversation about a different book that you could make? Oftentimes in the same family, but with a different shape.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you work with authors that are unagented?
Yes, we do. We reach out to, we ideate a ton of our books here.
Yeah, that seems to be a unique characteristic of Chronicle.
Tell us through that process.
So in that Thursday editorial meeting, and that's everybody who works on food and lifestyle titles comes to that meeting, we sometimes have an idea and we'll reach out to people who can write it. Or sometimes we're reading and we're looking at Instagram and we're looking at TikTok and these topics bubble up and you're like, oh, we should really do a book on protein macros. Oh, we should really do a book on. And that starts the process of, oh, let's reach out to somebody. Or you might see a proposal from an agent, or we do have a submissions folder. We are not religious about looking at our submissions folder. And we also always say that with the caveat that we do not need to reply to people who send things into our submission folder. But sometimes you do find a gem in there.
So that would be like the slush pile.
It's the slush.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's digital slush.
And that's on, just for anyone listening, that's on the Chronicle website.
It is.
You could try your hand.
Submissions at chroniclebooks.com.
Yeah. You never know.
Who looks at the slush pile?
Well, everybody kind of peeks in there. There are some editors, I think, who never touch the slush pile. In Food and Lifestyle, we used to have a Friday morning party once a month, and we would just go through slush. And it was super fun, and we sort of lost time, but we keep saying, let's revive that.
I want to go to that party.
I know.
I know.
There are some wild ideas in the slush.
Oh,
Yeah.
I believe it.
So many pet cookbooks in the slush,
No way.
Wow. Wow.
which is a hard no.
That's really interesting. Pets. Huh.
I mean, we talked earlier about technology changing the way you edit, but also the actual structure of proposals that you're seeing. I'm assuming they've changed.
Absolutely.
Pitch decks, highly designed. And how much does that affect your decision?
I mean, we're a very visual house.
Yeah.
So if we get a killer, gorgeous proposal, we're going to consider it. Or we're going to consider the person behind it as someone who maybe potentially, photographs a book we have in process. So they're impressive. When somebody sends you a gorgeous proposal, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's something you have to download from the web, and we've seen some really wonderful proposals, and they're very compelling.
Yeah.
What doesn't work?
Do not ever, ever send a publishing house your entire manuscript. We get those.
Oh.
And we don't get them from agents so much. We do get them occasionally from an agent, like, hey, so-and-so self-published this. Take a look. But I don't want to parse through that much content. That is just too much.
And even if you self-published it,
yeah,
then do a synopsis, do a summary. It's okay that it exists in an entirety somewhere.
Do you ever republish self-published books?
Yes, we have, actually.
Yeah?
Joy of Less was a book on our lifestyle list probably 8 or 9 years ago. And that was a book that the author had self-published on Amazon. And that book was very, very successful. Yeah, there's absolutely a model out there of finding content that's been self-published and has done quite well. I mean, I think you see it more in fiction, fan fiction, but it happens in the food and lifestyle space as well.
But that book has to have sold extremely well for a self-published title for you to take interest in it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't scour the world for those as frequently as some of my colleagues, and certainly the lifestyle category, I think, is a little riper for that, considering that there are so many cookbooks, so many beautifully presented cookbook proposals, and so many agents selling cookbooks, whereas lifestyle seems to have sort of quieted. I think the genre has quieted in recent years, and it's also like you're seeing so much of the same thing that if you are browsing around online and you're on Etsy and you're like, oh, wait, what?
Oh.
That's a wild idea. should we reach out and see if they want to make a book that gets distributed into a ton of different markets and channels instead of just selling it on Etsy?
That's super interesting.
It actually brings up a kind of interesting question is how have cookbook buyers changed?
They've really changed. The number of SKUs are minimal, I would say, especially the national specialty market. A lot of times there isn't a cookbook buyer anymore. It's somebody who buys cookbooks, puzzles, and interiors or something. So, and this is not across accounts, certainly there are still dedicated cookbook buyers in major retail accounts, but I think that it has been consolidated. You lose the specialty. You lose the person who knows the category as well when you have someone who buys widely across different categories. So I think we're seeing fewer cookbook buyers.
Are you seeing fewer cookbook buyers, but at the same time, more cookbooks out on the market?
I think the number of cookbooks being published has decreased. There are still a tremendous number of cookbooks out there, but 5 years ago, there were publishers publishing cookbooks, like Harlequin Romance was publishing cookbooks, and there were so many people in the cookbook game, and there were so many cookbooks. And then I feel like there's been a lot of restructuring in the industry. There's been a lot of people who have just stopped publishing cookbooks. I would say the number has been probably pretty consistent over the past 2 or 3 years. I don't feel like it's increasing.
What is the most difficult part of selling cookbooks to the public for your sales and marketing teams? What helps move the needle these days?
Well, morning shows and NPR still move the needle.
Really?
They still do.
Okay.
Okay.
Certain events, especially events with a buyback, really help move the needle. Kind of starry events, like things that people repost and repost and repost. It's hard. It's hard to get attention for cookbooks. I have 2 books from last season that have wonderful press. And, one of the authors was on the Drew Barrymore show. I'm like, where are the sales? This book should be at 25,000 copies, what's happening?
Right.
So it's a hard question to answer.
What's a starry event?
I don't know. And that kind of changes too. Like sometimes we had an author do an OpenAI event at the company, and so many people bought books. I mean, you sell a certain number of books into those events in order for the author to appear and sign books and talk about the book. But then when you all of a sudden start getting a ton more orders coming out of that, or, a big deal, like someone's on a panel at Cherry Bomb, someone's at 92nd Street Y with Samin, or, those are starry events. Those definitely move books.
That's so interesting. What about the backlist? Is backlist still selling as well as ever, or is that changing too?
Well, in order to have a strong backlist, you need to have a strong front list. So it's never true that a book that's been out for 4 years, I mean, maybe there are probably exceptions to this, but you don't have a book that's out in the world for a number of years and then all of a sudden it takes off. So you need to have a strong front list trajectory in order to feed that backlist. We have several very strong backlist cookbook titles. I mean, Tartine Bread being one of them. Tartine Bread sold more in 2020 than it had, I think, for the entire length of its selling life. And the Snoop, the first From Crook to Cook.
Right. There was that article. Was it the New York Times that mentioned the Snoop cookbook?
We were just like, what happened there? I mean, okay, we'll take it. But yeah, there are certain titles that sell really nicely over year. They tend to be bigger titles. They're the tried and true titles from 10 years ago. And we love it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point, though. You have to have a strong front list to have a strong back list. It's not like you can just say, oh, yeah, that book's just really going to take off in 5 years.
Yeah, probably not. And sometimes we do try to boost the backlist. We have meetings with our marketing publicity team and we say, this book is 2 years old, but it's having, this particular thing is having a moment. Can we not re-promote? And sometimes we do re-promote and put a little more energy behind something that we published a few years ago. And sometimes it works.
Right.
But most often, a very busy M&P team does not have time to revisit the backlist. So.
Right.
It's on the author. It's really what it usually comes down to.
Yeah, seeing if there's something happening in the moment that might be worth putting some juice behind it. As you know, there's been a lot of consolidation in the publishing world, but Chronicle has remained independent. Would you call Chronicle a mid-sized publisher?
I would call Chronicle a mid-sized publisher. Yeah.
And so we're sort of curious, what are some of the pluses and minuses of being a mid-sized publisher?
I mean, definitely identity is a plus. What we just spent quite a long time talking about, how do you know it's a Chronicle book? That sense of identity is really, I think it's one of the reasons why my team at least works at Chronicle. And the people that we work with, the team, we are pretty loyal here at Chronicle. So I have a team of people. I've been working with Vanessa Dina for the entire time I've worked at Chronicle. She's our art director. She doesn't design every one of our cookbooks, but she runs the team that does. And I can't imagine working somewhere without her. So there's loyalty and identity. We are able to make a lot of fun, creative decisions. I think that, I have colleagues at other houses who are also able to make fun, creative decisions, but I just feel like we're able to work really closely with every member of our team because there's only so many of us here.
You're all right there.
We're all right here.
Yeah.
Well, some of us are in New York, some of our designers and our editors and our MMP team. So the downside is we don't have $1 million to spend on a cookbook. I mean, maybe there's one amazing one to go for. But, advances are high and some houses can outspend us quite a lot.
So some of those notable passes are because it's just too expensive.
Yeah, we just know that we won't be able to win it. And a lot of those are platform books, like huge platform influencer, starry actresses writing a cookbook. And some of them we are like, oh, I wish we could do that. But collaboration, I would say, is a plus. We do have, Kate, when we made Lavash together, you sat down with the designer and the photographer.
Right. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen
everywhere.
So we are able to offer that level of care and collaboration.
One of the things when I went to visit Chronicle was I didn't realize you have this humidity controlled room of every single title that Chronicle has ever published. And I was like, wow, that was just so cool.
The archive.
Yeah, the archive was just amazing.
How old is Chronicle? I should know this.
I should know this too.
Okay, we'll find out.
My head.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Chronicle Books was part of the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle, until I want to say, I don't know, 2000, maybe earlier than that, when Nyan McAvoy bought Chronicle Books and started running it separately. I can confirm those details with you. I'm embarrassed that I don't know that
I should have done my homework. And of course that explains the name. So, and you did just mention platform. We're talking about big books and we have to ask, just any words on platform in today's day and age?
Platform is an interesting, we're keeping an eye on platform because I love someone who can sell their books, somebody super beloved, their audience trusts them. When they post about the book or when they create excitement around the book, people pre-order. That is a clear path to sales. But I think that for some of the platform-driven books, I do wonder about that backlist potential. I do wonder about how long the book sells. You see books hit the New York Times bestseller list and then just disappear forever. What happened? So I should have looked at it before this. That would have been a really good move by me, but we do keep track of certain influencer books and we look at BookScan with some regularity to sort of see how's it tracking, where's it going? And there are some surprises of books that keep going. And there are some, not a surprise, right? Baking Yesteryear continues to sell.
Right. Is it kind of like how blogs in maybe the 2008, 2009, a lot of big food bloggers got these cookbooks. Some of those books were really successful. Others weren't as successful.
Exactly.
For who knows what reason.
Who knows what reason.
And maybe those people aren't blogging anymore or even writing about food anymore. It's just hard to know.
It's hard to know.
When you say you're keeping an eye on platform, it sounds like you're keeping an eye on how much it's really affecting book sales.
Yeah.
It's not just the only thing you're going on.
It's not the only thing we're going on. There are so many different types of platform too, and you never know. In 2-3 years when the book we just bought comes out, what are the kids all looking at? How do you reach people? That has morphed so dramatically in the amount of time that I've been in publishing because I started here at Chronicle, sort of right on the cusp of the old school blogger, the Deb Perlman, those books that, their great blog platform translates into big book sales. And since then, there have been so many different platforms that have come and gone or come and stayed. And so, yeah, it has to be more than platform. It has to be good recipes and beautiful book and hooky idea and a strong title.
Can I ask you about the hooky idea a little bit more? Because one thing I think maybe used to work in the past with blogger cookbooks is they could be generalists. Mm-hmm. Do generalist cookbooks sell anymore? Or do you need to be either hyper-specific or already have a big name?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do feel that general publishing needs a platform. Like, you're just not going to have any old person come out and be like, here's the only cookbook you ever need. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right.
But I do feel that there are too many general cookbooks, and you just don't need that many soup to nuts cookbooks in your life. Maybe you just want one really good soup cookbook, or you want one really good, like, these are super accessible desserts that I can make in under an hour. I do think that the only way to differentiate your book is to have some sort of value proposition or hook to it. Whether that's the person who wrote it or 10 ingredients or less. You know,
right. Like, idea or person or voice.
Right. And sometimes they all come together and you have something kind of magical, which mysteriously doesn't sell.
But sometimes it sells. Come on.
Sometimes it sells. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about the books that Chronicle is putting out this year. What are you excited about?
Oh my gosh. Oh, we have a wonderful baking book called Dobra Dobra. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but she is an author based in Poland, but she's American. It's a baking book that has all those sort of like wonderful Jewish, like associated with Jewish baking projects like babka, and then all these other wonderful things that you've never heard of, because Poland is such a rich country. I mean, such a history there. The book does get into that, but it's also really quite funny, and it's a beautiful book. It's full of pictures of things that you just want to make and eat.
How did you find the author?
You know what? That was an agented proposal. That's not my book. It's edited by my colleague, Claire Gilhooly, and that came to us as a proposal. And as they worked together on the book, I think what started off as a 224-page baking book became a larger statement. We have also a book on pizza coming with Tara Jensen, who was the baker at Smoke Signals. She has 2 previous books, but she's never worked with Chronicle before. And I'm particularly proud of it. It is one of my books, and it is going to be the first big pizza Bible written by a woman. And she's got her kids in the shots, and it's a progressive baking book. So you start with gateway doughs like pita and focaccia, and then you move into yeasted pizza doughs. And then if you want to get super serious and do sourdough baking, you can. So there's this nice progressive flow to the book. All kinds of great tips for using your home oven and doming the pizza against the broiler and putting it on a wire rack so it doesn't get soggy. But she's also a spokesperson for Ghazni ovens. So there's some outdoor oven use, the Uni and the Ghazni. She's got a section because she used to make wood-fired pizzas on, hey, if you can make a pizza over fire, try it. And here's some different ways to do that. So a lot of fun for somebody who really wants to get into pizza. A real journey.
Love that. And also it feels like Chronicle Books, you really do a lot with baking and have a great track record with baking. So this feels like it also makes sense. So California books, baking books, like lots of different other types of books as well. Like say ramen. I know you have a ramen book coming out.
Instant Ramen. It's a terrific book. It's like how to use your ramen packet in super creative ways, taking all kinds of different flavor pathways. That's a really fun book. It has infographics and flavor charts, and that's a delicious book.
Lots of specificity. Mm-hmm. That's what really kind of works, catching your attention.
And visual potential.
We also have a little book, 35 recipes for butter. And it looks like a stick of butter, you know, capitalizing on that pad of butter. Things that look like things trend. That's going to be fun.
Some houses, like the books all kind of look the same, and they're, well, Chronicle, and we've talked about, it sort of has a distinct personality. The books can be wildly different, like the little tiny butter book and this big pizza tome, and there's a lot of diversity there. Before we let you go, is there anything you wish authors knew about the editorial process?
I would say trust the experience that you get from a publishing house. There are reasons. I mean, we ultimately want our authors to love their book. That is the goal. But we also want the book to sell. That's the larger goal.
Yeah.
We have a lot of experience in making and hearing from people. I mean, I have 16 years of reading Amazon comments and going places and having someone tell me that they hate using cross-references. And, I get the commentary. I understand. So trust us, but push us, because the very finest books that I've ever produced in my life as an editor were because the author team and I didn't agree. And we worked to find a compromise, the spirit of like, okay, it's not just I'll give you this and I'll give you that, but like, how do we combine those? Like, how do we get to the most interesting place? So accept and trust, but also sometimes you're right. And you need to push a little because you're the expert and you're the expert in the category and you see what's special about what you want. In which case it's go to bat for it.
Great advice.
Terrific advice.
Really great. We really appreciate taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you both. And thank you for making this podcast, which is terrific.
Thank you for listening to today's show. If you have a question, a comment, or a guest suggestion, contact us at everythingcookbooks.com. We rely on listener support, and here are ways to help. Subscribe to our newsletter at everythingcookbooks.substack.com. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and leave a review. Order books mentioned on the show through our affiliate page at bookshop.org. You can shop our t-shirts, our sweatshirts, and other great merch, or just buy us a round of coffee. Reach out about advertising on the show or becoming a sponsor. Thank you, as always, to our editor, Abby Circatella. And until next time, keep on writing, reading, and cooking.